Hello children, how are you today? Welcome back to Lessons with Sarah. Today we are going to learn about the Parsha. This week's Parsha is Parshat Bamidbar. Let's sing our Parsha song. The Parsha of the week is Parshat Bamidbar. Parshat Bamidbar. Parshat Bamidbar. The Parsha of the week is Parshat Bamidbar. Parshat Bamidbar. Now, do you know what Bamidbar means? Midbar is a desert. Bamidbar means in the desert. Now, do you know what was going on in the desert? Do you remember what we talked about many weeks ago when the Jewish people left Mitzrayim? They went into the desert. Do you remember what a desert is? I'm going to remind you. A desert is a place that doesn't have a lot of rain. So there's not a lot of trees, there's not a lot of water, and there's not a lot of plants. It's very, very plain. And that's where the Jewish people were. They were traveling in the midbar, in the desert. Now, this week's Parsha talks about how the Jewish people camped in the desert. Have you ever been camping? Have you ever gone camping? Well, what do you need when you go camping? Where do you sleep? There's no houses, there's no hotels. So, that's right, you sleep in a tent. Let me show you a tent. See, here are tents that are being used for camping. There's a bunch of tents and they're in a shady spot with trees. Do you think the tents in the olden days looked like that? Well, the Jewish people also camped in tents. Now remember, there was a lot of Jewish people. Remember, Yaakov had 12 shvatim, and each of his children had lots of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So there was hundreds and thousands of people. Now imagine having hundreds and thousands of tents. It could get very disorganized and very chaotic and very messy. Well, don't worry. In this week's Parsha, we learn about how the Jewish people camped in the desert, in the midbar. Would you like to see how they camped? I'm going to show you. Here is a picture of the Jewish people camping in the desert. Can you see the mountains around? Sometimes deserts have mountains. Now, can you see the Mishkan in the middle with the fire over the Mishkan? That was a special fire of Hashem. Can you see how there's little groups of tents around the Mishkan? Here you can see it even better. The Mishkan was in the middle, and around the Mishkan there was the Shevet Levi. Shevet Levi were the helpers. They helped pack up the Mishkan and carry the Mishkan, and they also worked in the Mishkan. So they got to be all quite close to the Mishkan. After that, there were the other shvatim. On each side of the Mishkan, there were 3 shvatim. Can you see that? And they were in a special rectangle. So they stayed super neat and organized. And all the people in that shevet camped in their spot. So everybody knew where they belonged. And there was no confusion. So let's see. Did you know that every shevet had a flag? And that flag was like a sign that says, this is where we are. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the flags of the shvatim. Okay, so let's see who was in the middle. In the middle was the Mishkan. And around the Mishkan was Shevet Levi. Let's see, Shevet Levi had a red flag. and they had the Choshen on their flag. So let's put them right here next to the Mishkan. But Levi had four different camps. So they had the camp of Gershon, the camp of Kehat, and the camp of Merari. And the fourth camp was Moshe and Aaron and the Kohanim. All the people that worked in the Mishkan was camped around the Mishkan. Okay, now around the rest of the Mishkan, outside of that, was the rest of the shvatim. Now let's see what we have here. We have our first shevet was Reuven. Reuven had a red flag with some flowers on it, and he camped over here at the bottom. Reuven, and next to Reuven was Shimon. Shimon had a city on his flag, and he had a green flag. Now after Shimon goes Levi. Now Levi was already camping around the Mishkan. After Levi was Yisachar. Now Yisachar had a picture of the sun, the moon, and the stars on his flag, and he was camping next to Moshe over here on this side. After Yisachar went Zevulun. Zevulun had a ship on his flag. He did a lot of traveling in the ocean, Zevulun. He camped next to Yisachar on that side. After Yisachar was, I'll tell you who was in the middle here. This was Yehuda. Yehuda was camping in the middle here, and he had a lion on his flag. Can you see that lion? I didn't really color it in so well. Let's make him put some yellow. Yehuda has a lion on his flag, and he was camping right here. See that? Now we have one more person camping here. We had Gad. Where's Gad? Gad is here. Gad had a tent, like a camp, on his flag, and he had a gray flag. So there we have one side and the other side. Now let's see who was on this side. We have Yosef. Now Yosef had two sons, and each son had their own camp. So this is Yosef's, so Yosef had Menashe and Ephraim. I don't know exactly what their flags looked like, but I'll put Menashe and Ephraim over here. And next to Menashe and Ephraim was Binyamin. Binyamin was Yosef's brother. Binyamin had a wolf on his flag. Can you see that? So that's Binyamin and Menashe and Ephraim. Now at the top we have three more shvatim. We have Yisachar. Where's Yisachar? Oh, Yisachar's over there. Okay, I'm getting mixed up. Naphtali. Naphtali had a gazelle on his flag. He was over here. Dan had a snake on his flag. And Asher had an olive tree on his flag. Can you see? And there we have it. See, the camp of the Jewish people when they traveled in the desert. Every time they stopped traveling and camped out for the night, they would set themselves up in this arrangement so everybody knew where they would go. Do you like knowing where you're going? Sometimes when we don't know where we're going, it gets really messy. Like when we want to clean up our toys and we don't know where everything goes. Let me show you a very messy room. Here is a very, very messy room with the toys all over the floor. Would it be easy to put things away in this playroom? I don't know where things go. How does it feel to be in this messy room? I feel very overwhelmed and not calm. Now let's see what happens when we clean up. How does this room feel? Did you know this is the same room? Just we have a place for everything. How does it feel when everything has a place? It feels nice and calm for me. I feel relaxed and safe. So you see, when everything has a place, it feels much better. And the Parsha is telling us this week that every person had a place. Every shevet had a place where they would go when it was time to camp. And you know what? When they traveled in the midbar, when they traveled in the desert, they also had a place where they would go. So everybody knew where they were supposed to be. Now, before we go, I want to sing the song of all the shvatim. Would you like to sing it with me? Let's sing it. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Yosef, Binyamin. These are the 12 shvatim. Again. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Yosef, Binyamin. These are the 12 shvatim. Now in this week's Parsha, we also hear about how Hashem asked Moshe to count all the people in the shvatim, all the people in Bnei Yisrael. Now, do you know why Hashem wanted Moshe to count all the people, all his people, all the Jewish people? When you have something very precious, like a collection, do you have a collection of something, of balls, of stamps, of cards? Do you like counting them? Do you like to see how many you have? How many times you count your precious collection of something? Well, that's why Hashem asked Moshe to count the Jewish people, because they were so precious to Hashem. Every single person in this camp was so precious to Hashem. Hashem wanted to know how many people he had. So do you know what happened? The Nasi, can you say Nasi? The Nasi was in charge of each shevet. So the Nasi of, let's say, Reuven, because he's the first. Reuven's Nasi would count how many people were in his camp. And he would bring that number to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was over here. And he would tell Moshe how many people were in his shevet. Then Shimon would count his people. He would count how many people were in Shimon. So each camp, each shevet would count their people and give it to Moshe. In the end, Moshe was going to count how many people altogether. Do you think Moshe was good at math? He was. Do you know how many people Moshe counted in this week's Parsha? I'm going to tell you, 1 second. Now, before I tell you how many people Moshe counted, I need to tell you that he didn't count everybody. He only counted the men between the ages of 20 and 60. I think Hashem wanted to know how many people could be in the war, how many people could be soldiers. So that came to 603,000 men, 550. Let me write that number for you. Here it is, 603,550. Is that a lot of people? It is, it's a lot of people. And that was just the men between ages 20 and 60. So you can imagine there was like maybe 2 million people camping in this campsite. That's a lot of people. Now, Moshe, I want to tell you how the Jewish people were counted. Remember I told you the Nasi would count the people? Well, he didn't count the people. He told every person to bring a coin. And then he counted the coins. Let me show you. Okay, so let's say these are the people in Shevet Reuven. Okay, so Reuven wants to count the people, but we don't count people. It's not a good thing to do. So this is what Reuven would tell his people. He would say, okay, everyone in my camp, give me a coin. So here's a coin for this one, Mr. Happy, Mr. Sad. Oops, you can't see the coins. There you go. Mr. Angry, Mr. Surprised, Mr. Calm, and Mr. Worried. So each person would bring a coin to the Nasi of Reuven. Here's the Nasi of Reuven. So here's one coin, and he's going to, all the coins are coming to the Nasi of Reuven. And now he can count the coins. Should we count them and see how many coins we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 coins. That means we have 6 people. Do you understand? That's how the people were counted in this week's Parsha. All right, friends, that's it for today. I hope you liked it. Bye-bye.